pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be aware of the fire exits. In the event of emergency, please move in a calm and orderly fashion down the stairs, and please don't use the elevator. The meeting notes are taken by the secretary for the purpose of a record of minutes, so please identify yourself each time you come to the podium, and please speak into the microphone. The meeting minutes are not to be intended to be a verbatim record, but only to indicate the sum and substance of the proceedings. The meeting workshop is being recorded by our ICAT department and broadcast on Spectrum Channel 1303. The board will follow the items in the order that they appear on the agenda. There's copies near the door. After the case has been called, the applicant and/or agent shall come to the podium and present their case. During this time, the planning board members will have the opportunity to question and comment on the case. For public hearing cases, the chairman will open the case for public input, in which anyone wishing to speak regarding the case will come to the podium, state your name and address, and direct all comments to the board. Once all public input has been received, the applicant and/or agent will be given the opportunity to respond to public input. Once all public input has been completed, the chairman will close public input, and the board will then move on to a decision. Public input is limited to 5 minutes. No further input is allowed after that point. Please call first case on our agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First case is case number PB 2024-05-06. Request by Colliers Engineering and Design, acting as agent for Providence Housing, for preliminary site plan approval and steep slope woodlot environmental protection overlay district permits for the proposed construction of 4 multifamily 2-story apartment buildings and 1 3-story apartment building totaling 104 units with site-related improvements and lot combination on premises 2590 Culver Road in an R5 residential district. I believe that lot combination is an error on my part. There's no lot combination.
Correct.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Kurt Charlin with Colliers Engineering and Design. We're the civil site engineers for the project. And I have Jessica Wade here with SWBR. She's the architect on the project as well. We also have the owner, Mark Griesberg, here with us as well. Since we were last here for the workshop, we did submit some support materials that were requested, some material specs, and a couple of revised plans. I know one of them was the demolition plan that was a little more legible. We submitted that. Hopefully that worked out for you. You could see the tree names and whatnot that were being removed versus the ones that were remaining in place. I also submitted a revised lighting plan, which is up for discussion with the board. It's kind of an option 2. Our current option that we had originally presented had a single double head pole in the parking lot farther away from the residential property line, still resulting in a significant distance of 0 light spill as you get to the residential. The board kind of wanted us to look at what was done adjacent on the RMI site. Those were single-headed poles. I believe only one fixture that I could see on the plan had a house shield. Those poles were a little bit closer to the property line. The plan that I presented to you moves the one pole that was in the middle of the parking lot to 2 poles closer to the residential with house shields. Similar photometrics, a little bit more light spill towards the residential, but still 0 by the property line. Certainly we open to either option that you prefer there. I think the parking lot itself has a better light, photometrically speaking, as a lighter light pattern with the single pole in the middle versus the 2 poles at the edge. It's a little bit more challenging to light that parking lot that way.
I'm sorry, you gave us both plans?
Well, I didn't resubmit the original plan. I just resubmitted the revised plan. Again, very similar photometrics overall. The parking lot has a little less light with the 2 poles. It certainly has more at the edge, but not necessarily spread throughout the whole pole, the whole line. So there was that first discussion. We received the comments back today kind of late, so I didn't get an opportunity to look really closely. It looked like there was just a few minor ones that we had to address back with, based on the town engineer's review. The majority of them were all satisfied. I think they were pretty minor in nature, the few that were outstanding. Nothing really outstanding there, so. And then, yeah, sure, if you'd like to talk.
Jessica Wade, SWBR. Some of the architectural items that were brought up last time or needed more information, one of the big ones was the heating and cooling system. So we are going with VRPs, which are through units like the site next door, the RMI project. So that will entail just a vent on the building within the unit, which we still have to place those. So I'd like to place them on the recesses so they're not on the front face, but we'll have to work through the engineering of that to see if what the requirements are for those vents near any openings or so on and so forth with structural too. So that was one question. So we will not have any units on the ground. They will all be in the unit. If that changed, we do have a markup of where the units would go, but we're not anticipating that. We just did it just in case, like we would place them all on the back side of the large building towards 104, and then kind of in those little nooks of the 8 plexes, so they're hidden and we can screen them. But as now, we are not calling for them, so there would be no units on the ground. The other item that was, I can hold this up for us, that was requested, which you guys should have, just with some color renderings or color elevations of the 8-plex building. So we have 2 different options, and there would be 2 of each color. The gentleman, he's not here, that requested it, but hopefully he got to see that. And then the other items were in regards to the playground. We did submit the material for the base. That's like a rubberized material on the ground. And from what we found for warranties for the actual equipment that you guys asked for, what I was seeing was anywhere from 10 to 15 years is pretty typical for a warranty for the actual equipment. And I think
I thought I saw five
that's
years.
for the base, but for the actual, playground itself, it's 10 to 15. If it's stainless steel, it depends on what it's made out of, but just did like an average of warranty for that. But correct, it's 5 years for the base material, the rubber. I think that was it architecturally. If you had any other questions, but
So you have other properties with playgrounds, correct?
yes, we have a few, yeah.
And have any of them exceeded their warranties at this point?
Joe, do you know if?
Probably not.
Yeah, so usually 10 to 15 years is pretty typical of replacement, especially now. I think a lot of them are also ever-changing with accessibility, and they're not just typical playgrounds anymore with slides. There's more of a ergonomic and social change to how playgrounds are formed. So we usually hire an outside source to provide us options for playgrounds that our landscape team would work with on that. But for stainless steel, if it depends on the material, what I found is that they usually give a warranty of 10 and some can hold out to 15 years. I think that was it architecturally, but
Yeah, there were a few minor landscape, I think, items to clean up. The plans had presented, there was a wall on one plan that was now removed. The color rendering and stuff shows that it's asphalt for the emergency accesses, things like that. So we took care of all those comments.
Is that it as far as presentation?
Should be, yep. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board? Shelley? Yeah.
I was wondering if we could go back and talk a little bit about the brownfield. If you could kind of talk about it slowly, go through it, talk about your plan, how long it's going to take, not kind of just rush over it, but just explain to us.
Sure. Robert's here with us.
Because it was a little bit more than just construction fill from what I read. So I think it's important for us all to know.
Good evening, Robert Kane, CSD Housing Development Consultant with Providence. So it's the old site was an old ravine, right? It was utilized for a landfill when 104 was constructed. So there's a lot of general urban fill construction debris where the ravine used to reside. So now it's all flat. So we're working with Collier's engineering department. And going through that process, we first got the Brownfield volunteer agreement in place. So that binds us to the DEC with cleaning up any exceedances that are on the site. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a chemist, so I can just speak in broad brushstrokes here. So when we got it accepted into the program, we then went through the next step on working with the DEC and our Brownfield engineer and our Brownfield attorney, submitted the Citizens Participation Work Plan to the DEC. That was approved. Public notices went out. We kind of worked with anyone that had comments. I don't think we actually received any comments, come to think of it. The process from there was then the DEC reviewed the remedial investigation work plan, which essentially shows where the hotspots per se are the commercial exceedances. A lot of it's just asphalt, some little bit of old oil. It's really just asphalt related. So it's got that part will come out. On the map, it's mostly in the center where the parking lot is. So again, I know Kurt mentioned that there aren't any actual hazardous materials on site. It's really just construction debris, unsuitable fill that'll be removed. As you move forward from the remedial investigation work plan, we'll then submit to the DEC for more soil testing. At that point in time, we'll review and define the tracks that we're going to be within. It'll be a track 4, track 2, or track 1. Track 4 is essentially cutting down a certain depth, removing any kind of environmentally hazardous materials per the DEC with its regs, and then capping it with either soil, foundations, asphalt. It's not as deep. The track 2 gets a little bit deeper. It's, I think, like 15 feet or so within any kind of residential building structure. And a track 1 is a full, cut down all the way to potentially urban fill and/or bedrock. So as we know here, the ravine is somewhere to the neighborhood of 30 to 40 feet deep. Bedrock is typically, another 60 feet below that. So I don't believe we'll be going with a track 1. We'll be most likely sticking to a track 2 and a track 4, essentially cutting down a certain amount of depth, removing any hazardous material per the DEC regulations, and then bringing in, suitable fill so that the buildings can sit slab on grade on top of that. So that's, moving from the remedial investigation work plan. We have the testing that defines the tracks, right? Once we then are locked into the tracks, we'll have a remediation action work plan, which is essentially looking at, what we told the DEC we'd remove in conformance with the approved or conditionally approved site plan. And then we would then remove any unsuitable soils. We would have an on-site soil management plan or site monitoring plan, where there'll be an engineer monitoring the soils that are being, remediated or over-excavated. They'll be testing those, classifying the soils. There'll be some soil piles to really determine if they go off to certain different landfills during construction. Moving forward during the ordinary course of construction, I believe we submitted a timeline that kind of goes through when we roughly expect that to occur. So, right when the site work is all site pad ready, we'll then have a clearance report with the DEC demonstrating that any kind of commercial exceedances have been abated or removed from the soil and that it is safe to move forward. Ongoing monitoring will include annual tests. There'll be these installation wells, making sure there's no groundwater issues with the previous contaminants. So there'll be an annual kind of write-up and report that gets submitted to DEC for ongoing observation and compliance.
So no construction would be taking place until it's remediated and approved by DEC?
Correct, yeah. The DEC would review the exact extent. So the construction, honestly, we wouldn't anticipate that to happen to start within a little over a year or so. But yeah, the DEC has to review and approve the further soil sampling, and then they also review the remedial action work plan. Not only that, but our funders, from a bank perspective, they'll want to see environmental clearance reports. They'll want to look at and vet, the type of remediation, the extent of the remediation, the quantities as well. So it'll be fully vetted before by the time we get into break ground into the construction.
And my other question is, when I was reading that report, 900-page report, There was some recommendations from Bergman, and they mentioned about a special slab, I guess, and then also air quality once the buildings are made, some type of
Oh, yeah.
air
It's
quality.
like a sub-slab depressurization system.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you. Soil vapor intrusion plan. So it'll have a passive radon mitigation system at the very least. The buildings are proposed to be slab-on-grade construction. Given the existing uses, the plan there is to cut down or over-excavate down to the areas of contaminants, remove those, bring in suitable fill, pack it down all the way up to grade, and then have slab-on-grade construction. Underneath the slabs will be a passive radon mitigation system. Basically, in upstate New York, the entire state is covered within a radon-sensitive climate zone. So essentially what happens is there will be an engineer that comes out during construction. They'll run the test. If the thing triggers, whoop, whoop, and then you kind of come in and then you have to install the actual designed radon mitigation system plan. But yeah, it'll be regulated with a soil vapor intrusion plan. It'll have an ongoing soil management plan and then ongoing compliance tests to make sure that it's a safe and healthy place to live in.
And can we do something about making sure we test the playground soil to make sure that's safe?
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Thank you. I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Dan, do you have any questions? Alan?
I'm the one who brought up the parking lot lights. Can you just explain what your solution is that you're presenting tonight?
Well, quite honestly, I think the plan that we originally presented, where
We're
we
happy
have the
with, I
pole
get it.
in the parking lot, is the best solution. We provided, which you requested, was similar lighting that was presented over on the RMI, which is essentially perimeter lights that have house shields on them, so that, I guess, at least from the very back of the light fixture, you wouldn't be looking at the fixture itself.
What I'm asking about is your solution, and can you just walk me through what you've done, the changes you want us to look at?
Instead of having a single pole located in the center of the parking lot,
It's going to be two 20-foot
well,
poles,
this is, I presented an option with
Right.
two 20-foot poles down at the bottom edge, facing forward.
Okay, so they're not facing,
Well, they're not, they're facing downward, but you would be shielding them from the back.
but they're on the south end of the parking lot facing north.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what we presented.
And what hours are these lights going to be on, or are they going to be activated by?
I would say that they would be on all darkness hours, I mean, it's a residential neighborhood, so it's probably, they're not gonna be turned off like a retail store that's gonna be off hours. I would assume for safety purposes, you're gonna wanna have lighting, street lighting. all
Dusk
the
to
time.
dawn is what you're saying?
Correct, yep.
How is that going to be regulated?
What do you mean?
They usually have.
Is it going to be on a timer, or is it going to be?
Well, they'll have photo cells, yeah, that would turn
I'm
off.
good
Yep.
with that.
Yep.
All right.
So Alan, can I ask some questions on that?
No, you may not.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
of course.
I'm sorry, did you say
You're the
yes?
chair.
Did you say yes? So you say one in the middle is better for lighting for the parking lot. Which one's better for the people that live on the other street?
I believe that they're really both about the same. I mean, there will be a little bit of shielding, like say the two houses are, I don't know if there's. Yeah, there's a couple of houses here. The ones with two on the edge might be a little bit better for them because it would block probably the edge, but I would say everybody from the side is still, I mean, you're looking up at lights, they're 20 feet high. I mean, it's pretty typical. They're along streets, they're along every business. People have more lights on their houses these days. They light their soffits, they light their sidewalks, So there's a certain amount. I would say those two houses, it probably projects a little bit less from the bottom of the fixture with the shields. But in terms of overall glow on the site, I don't think it changes a whole lot. I think the single pole in the center is safer for the community there. It tends to shed a little bit better, more uniform light on the parking lot on the inside.
And it's further from the property line.
It's definitely further from the property line.
So from a security, safety perspective, you feel the one in the middle?
I do.
Is there any is there any change in the photometrics on it?
Well, there's changes in the photometrics on the parking lot, and there is a little bit higher light spill back towards the residential with the poles, because we're naturally moving them closer. So you're gonna push a little bit of lights. In terms of the spill, what code requires, 0-foot candles at the property line, both are acceptable.
No, I
So,
get that.
Both options meet
The
code.
one at the south border, though, is going to give you the same amount of light.
In that end of the parking lot, we don't have, I mean, the only way to have the same light as we have with the pole located in the center would be to add another 2 poles. So I think then you're starting to be a little counterintuitive. You're adding 4 poles versus 1 with 2 fixtures. You're gonna have 4 fixtures instead of 2.
So I'm looking at the north end of that parking lot. What's the difference between the single pole and the double pole as far as lumens being projected? I've got on here that it's 0.4 at the north end.
Of the parking lot, what about
Yeah.
the center? I'm not exactly familiar with all the exact foot candles. But if you look at it, it gets pretty low in there. It gets down in the 0.2, 0.4, something like that. Like I said, it's not dramatic one way or another. I think you're pulling a couple poles a little bit closer to the residential. Yes, we're able to shield those, but
That's probably where I'm going to be most comfortable. Just,
Yeah,
I think this, a lighting plan itself looks like about the same light at the north end. I don't think it's going to be,
well, at the north end, it probably, you mean up by where it actually, you come in off the drive? Well, there's poles up there along the road, so yeah, it's naturally gonna be pretty similar there. It's more like centrally located in the parking lot. It gets a little bit low when you compare the two. I would say along the roadway, it's similar, like where you enter the parking lot, it's very close. Yeah.
I think it's a good alternative, but I just, if
I'm
it's not
looking-
a security issue, so.
I'm thinking of myself being on Whitlock and living right behind there is what I'm thinking. And that's why I brought it up. I got to tell you, I'm really grateful for what you guys have done listening to us. Would you just do a quick description for the record of how you reached out to the community and how those conversations went?
Sure, yeah, we did a public outreach here, I think Robert was talking, and we had three individuals show up from the neighborhood. Good discussions with all. I think we were able to answer all their questions. I feel like it went very positive. I didn't see any negativity there. We explained what we were doing with all of the site layout and how everything was going to operate and utility-wise and all that. So one gentleman expressed a little concern about his ability to turn into the drive at the Quicklies. I've been there several times. I've had no problem in or out. I haven't seen any traffic backing up in or out, so I don't know. I mean, the traffic study is what it is. There's a signal there, and the county manages that. But I think that was the only real negative that we heard was there was a little concern with the traffic at that intersection getting in and out of there.
Great. I appreciate you guys doing the neighborhood
I
thing.
think they got
The
some
only,
more.
the only further thing I would add is that we received a mailing list from the town, and then to send a direct mailer out to everyone, had a publication notice out. So folks that did come out there just seemed to be more generally interested in knowing what was going on, what was the traffic plan. And as soon as folks found out that, all the traffic would be, diverted to the signalized light and it wasn't utilizing the residential streets, I think most people kind of pretty much said thank you and then walked on.
Thank you.
Anything else, Alan? Nate? John?
Yeah, just one item. Over the weekend, I was able to walk the site, and I think through all our discussions, the biggest item here is just making sure screening, buffering for the neighbors on Whitlock. And on your landscaping plan, you're showing a lot of additional plantings you're going to put in. But just one thing I wanted to, kind of throw out there is, after the fact, once all the landscaping goes in, would you have any issue of going in and infilling, certain areas, like if there was an open area where maybe you could fit in another tree or two here, just to give that buffering and screening for the neighbors there, because, it is fairly open, out there, and, when you're standing on, your side of the property line currently, you can see, right into backyards, but
Yeah.
that was really about it.
with it,
That's all.
I'll just stay up here. So that shouldn't be a problem at all. Honestly, it's one of the things we like to add to. I want to make sure things are well screened. It's one of those things you kind of you get a baseline approval set, and then as you go through construction, we manage the change order list, and we can always add in and create more upgrades to the site. A lot of times when you kind of get halfway through, you realize you're out of the risky portion of it, and you're like, okay, let's start looking at upgrades, and then start following up with the appropriate authorities to make improvements to the site. So I personally don't take any issue with that. And I think also a lot of the residents have their own 6-foot screening there too, but from it relates to the more landscaping, I think it's always a good thing to have that.
Anything else, John? David?
I'm all set. No,
Okay.
good.
I just have one more question, or not question, but just comment.
I had something too, but that's okay. Go
Okay.
ahead.
The snow storage areas are much better on this, and thank you for landscaping around
yes.
the entrance dumpster. I think that'll make a big difference. That was it.
Thank you.
I'm just praising.
Get a positive comment.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
Thank you. I
I
appreciate
think
it.
this one's easy too. Provided if you get approval tonight, when do you plan to start, and what does your whole schedule look like from start to finish?
Yes, so there's a couple of things. One that I touched on before, and I think a board member might have been a little bit misunderstood about the fact that, there's one sense of urgency that we potentially have to deal with, which is just stubbing the water main outside of Culver Road. So potentially that construction is going to happen sometime between now and June, because they're going to put a moratorium on trenching in Culver Road once they put down fresh asphalt. So we've been working with the Water Authority trying to figure out the water service, at least stubbed into the property to about where the meter vault will be. Outside of that, I believe construction is not scheduled to start until spring of 2026, maybe a little bit after that. Yeah, maybe a little bit before that, maybe. Yeah, I mean, with the exception of some monitoring wells, probably some test pits and things like that for the DEC's checking stuff.
So you're not going to start until spring of 2026. When are you going to finish?
It'll be about a 21-month, 22-month construction schedule. It really depends on final scope of the DEC with the dual track element to this, how much remediation we need to do, and then it'll change the construction schedule. So I think from an approval standpoint, I would expect to come back for extensions as we kind of navigate the intricacies of the DEC program. So.
And I apologize. So you said the water main work has to start soon.
Correct.
So what exactly is going to happen between now and spring of 2026, if anything?
Probably just the stubbing of the water main.
And
That's
any
it.
testing.
Yeah, and testing, so, there'll be some monitoring wells put in, some testing material, but that's about it.
Okay. That was it for me. Okay, based on that, any other questions from the board? I was going to ask Kate if you could do the review of seeker and anything else you'd like to talk
Is this
about?
still a public hearing?
Well, I'm going to open up the public hearing after she does the seeker.
Okay.
Hi, Kate Powers, LaBelle Associates. Okay, seeker. So, seeker includes part 1 from the applicant and then part 2 and part 3, which have been put together for your convenience. I guess just as a summary. So, myself and Wes, we recently had a conversation with the planning board attorney Jeff, as well as his colleagues, including one of his colleagues who has expertise in seeker. We wanted to better understand sort of what the typical or appropriate approach is for seekers related to brownfields. And through that discussion, we're moving forward with suggesting a negative declaration. And so with the further investigation and the remediation as part of the project, ultimately it's improving the site overall. And additionally, brownfields and sites like that are very regulated as well. And so those are two items that sort of led us towards a negative declaration. I can further go through the letter if that's what the group wants.
I'm okay, but anybody in the group, Shelley, you asked a lot about any specifics you want her to review? I think I'm okay. Everybody okay? I think we're okay. Thank you for all the detail. too.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, with that, I'm going to open the public hearing. Anybody who would like to speak about this case, please come to the podium. State your name and address, please.
Casey Miller, it's 968 Whitlock Road. So the first thing I noticed about this new drawing here from the last one we had is the scale appears to be wrong because the road there is beyond the actual entrance to that thing there. So I was just kind of curious if buildings were right on the first one versus the second one, because that changes the light pollution to my backyard versus my neighbor's backyard. Because you can see this is the street that comes into this facility here, but now it's beyond it, so it seems to have stretched. And I have a photo on my phone where it shows that the sidewalk to here was in my backyard, but now it's in my neighbor's backyard, so it's just kind of stretched. I'm just curious if the scale or whatnot is because that
I'm not really sure what happened on that. I'm sure that the photometric plan is right.
okay.
It does look bizarre because everything else along
Yes.
is right.
So originally I had the sidewalk coming to my backyard and I really wasn't dealing with that parking lot there. But now it's kind of shifted, so I'm just kind of curious that. Last time I was here, that was like a paver thing. Now it's asphalt. Is that gated?
It is gated.
Okay, because people are going to drive through that and that's going to
It's
be
gated,
bad, but
and it's
gates are great.
it's asphalt now because of the fire chief.
All right.
I don't know which one's your house.
So it's 968. I'm the fourth one, I think, from the stop sign. So
1, 2, 3.
We're going a little outside of
Yeah.
protocol, but that's okay.
that's me. So yeah, it's that scale's wrong. This for the original picture I have is correct.
Right. Normally, we're supposed to ask the board, but that's okay. I'm glad you're getting your answers. So.
Yeah. I guess other than that, nothing else has really surprised difference between the last time I was here and this time. So I guess it is what it is, and hopefully the new neighbors aren't a pain. So that's all I got.
Did you get all their names?
Not yet.
Okay.
Can I just, unless there's somebody else coming
Is there anybody
up.
else who would like to speak regarding this? I was going to,
Yeah, one of the changes, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you've lowered the site.
What's that?
I think what Alan's bringing up is the site is not as high elevation.
Ye-
as-
yes,
As when he would have originally saw it.
That's 100% correct. Yeah, we dropped it about 5.5 feet.
So I'm
Yeah,
not
when
sure.
you were in here last, yeah, we lowered the whole, the finished floors and everything were 4.5 to 5.5 feet lower than originally anticipated. Yeah. Yeah. So it's basically at grade almost, really, the whole site.
So our drainage concern.
Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, even with your drainage concern, we always capture all of our stormwater and treat it on site, correct? Yep. But yes.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other questions from anybody in the audience? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay. Does the board have any other discussion points? Questions? There's been a lot of detail on this one, so.
I've got one last question, I promise. Is the fire access lit?
No.
Good. Good answer.
Okay. If there's no other questions, and please, there is a lot of data here, and we've been working on this for a while, so don't be shy. Okay. With that, then I'd like to move to, I'll make a motion on seeker that it's an unlisted negative declaration. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
nay, 0 abstain, 0 absent, and 0 vacant. Okay. I'll entertain a motion on the development.
On PB 2024-05-6, that we approve the project as presented with a condition that all DEC requirements get met. I'm sure somebody else is going to have something else for me.
Also, if you could just have a condition be the applicant address any outstanding comments from Labella.
Yep.
And you also might want to add in John's of, once the proposed landscaping has grown to maturity, that the applicant will provide additional landscaping in open areas to ensure robust screening on the south side of the property.
I couldn't have said it better.
I'm sorry, I want to capture that one correctly. So how did you say that?
Sure.
I was still writing the previous one.
Okay. So that once the proposed landscaping has grown to maturity, that the applicant will provide additional plantings in open areas to ensure robust screening on the south side of the property.
Once landscaping reaches maturity to address,
To provide additional plantings in open areas.
okay?
And the ongoing testing that they said the ongoing testing that they would be doing after
All DEC requirements are met
Yeah.
and
in testing.
And
that-
testing.
Yeah.
That's,
can I add it to that, or is it separate?
part of that. That's part of that.
That's, okay.
That'll be a DEC requirement.
Yeah.
I would just note too, the lighting,
That's what I was gonna
right?
I was going
Yeah,
to
we
say,
didn't come to a decision on that.
Yeah.
yeah, I apologize, I did rush through that. Are we all okay with the 2 poles in the back of the parking lot?
That's my preference.
I'm fine with either.
I'm okay with the 2 in the back.
Yep.
Yeah, we're okay with the
2-pole option.
2 poles.
At the southern end of the driveway, or parking lot, sorry.
Call it the southern parking lot.
That's,
I think it's the only one, right?
We
It's
got
the
it,
only
we
one
got
on the
it.
south.
That'll be part of the set.
With the shields. Okay. All right.
I'm sorry.
Comment on the,
You're going to have to state your name and,
yes, I will. It's
Okay.
Mark Breisberger from Providence Housing. I want to comment on the planting that you introduced. It was never intended to be a guarantee forever. I mean, we will plant the trees as shown, we will replace the ones that aren't thriving, but it's not a forever guarantee. And I don't know what robust means. Is that an engineering term?
No.
I guess delete the word robust. It makes no sense to me. I don't know what it means.
This is what I have. Once landscaping reaches maturity, to provide additional plantings in open areas.
Well, that's, you did not use the word. And when you say maturity, how long does that mean? 50 years? 25 years?
well, I mean, I think we could put a maintenance agreement on this if we needed to, right?
Well, a reasonable maintenance agreement where we all know what our expectations are, I like that. I don't like open-ended, we could argue forever about what maturity means.
So,
I
John,
don't want to do that.
So,
what do you think of maturity? How long after they're done in 2028, if I did my math right?
Let's assume.
That or just, even prior to the C of O for the buildings, that once the landscaping, as shown on the landscaping plans in, then just going through and saying, okay, we have a X amount of foot gap in this one area, just add an additional tree or 2 in that area type thing. So I'm okay with not, say, waiting to maturity, but prior to the C of O being issued for the buildings, that we go in and fill those gaps in.
Well, depending on when we apply for a C of O, I mean, in winter, that's not fair. But I would say a reasonable period of time, the first sort of springtime after C of O, is a reasonable time to do an evaluation. And if we need to fill a gap, we can fill a gap.
Yeah, or whatever time frame's ideal for planting, so whether it's spring, fall, as long as they get done, that's the big thing.
Yeah, but I just didn't want this to have this hanging over our head for the next 50 years either. Thank you.
John, if you're amenable, I would suggest that we have the code enforcement officer go along with them.
Yeah.
Not that I can tell them what to do, but
So I interpret the condition, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, infill any areas that are bare along the south lot line with landscaping for screening prior to the certificate of occupancy issued.
No.
The building inspector is going to have to do a final inspection.
yeah,
Per the site plan.
yeah.
I would not subject it to C of O. I would say the spring after certificate of occupancy is issued, or the spring before. If you subject it to C of O, then that's going to hold up project financing in a major way. I mean, we're reasonable people, and we're just trying to figure out the reasonable time to do it, you know? But I would say either like the spring after, whatever it may be, right?
Yeah, that's, to me, that's fine, yeah.
Okay, so how did you capture it, Michelle, so I can get it?
So infill any areas that are bare along the south lot line with landscaping for screening the spring after issuance of the C of O. Is everybody in agreement with that?
Or at the time of C of O, if it's in the spring or summer, that's what we'll do it. I just worry about.
Screening the spring after.
I don't even have anything to give you.
So Michelle, why don't you read what you captured? I just want to make sure we got it right.
I have infill any areas that are bare along the south lot line with landscaping for screening the spring after issuance of the C of O. All New York State DEC requirements are met. Address any open comments. I wanna add in there, do you wanna,
By Labella,
by Labella or by Labella and Monroe County
yep.
Planning and Development? And then I wanted to clarify this two light poles proposed at the south lot line. Are these the 20-foot poles or?
Yes,
With shields.
with shields.
Two 20-foot poles with shields at the south lot line.
Southern parking lot line.
Parking lot line. Gotcha. And that's all I had.
Mr. Richard, this was for final site plan approval, correct?
Correct. Preliminary and final, or, yeah. Preliminary and final.
And do I have a second?
Second.
The signage is coming back.
Yes.
Yeah. Do we want that as a condition?
Yeah, I'll put it down. Any signage. Come back to planning board.
And I'm sorry, I missed, with all the talk, I missed who seconded
That
it.
was Mr. Burdick.
Thank you very much.
Is everybody clear on those conditions and the proposal? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No abstains and none absent. I think we're good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, and look forward, and best of luck with the project. me 1 second here. I apologize. Okay. Okay, Michelle, if you're ready, we're ready.
I am, thank you. Next case is case number PB 2025-01-01, request by Marathon Engineering, acting as agent for Private Enterprise Properties LLC for preliminary final site plan approval for the proposed redevelopment of the existing building, adding 3,900 square feet for the construction of a medical clinic for the Rochester Regional Center for Urology to include reconfiguration of the existing parking lot with site-related improvements and lot combination on premises 2615 and 2627 Culver Road in an R6 residential district.
Good evening. My name is Larissa Perillo with Marathon Engineering. Here with me tonight is Liz Reynolds with SWBR. We are seeking preliminary final site plan approval for the Rochester Regional Health Center for Urology expansion. As noted, they are adding a 3,900 plus or minus square foot building addition to the east of the existing building. This is due to the increase of practice. They are looking to increase from 7 doctors to 9 doctors. That is also needed for the increase in parking spaces. We are proposing 44 proposed parking spaces as 36 are required. There are no new utilities for this building. As discussed at the workshop meeting, there were a couple of things that we needed to address. One of the major things were plantings. We added 4 new shade trees in the front lawn to help with screening to the right of way. And we've added 7 5-foot arborvitaes around the dumpster enclosure. I know we were really looking for the 5-foot on those. And we have also added a lot of plantings around the building. We've also looked into the trip generations, and it is about a 16% increase in traffic. And I know we've also were asked to add in a proposed future sidewalk that was added to sheet C 2.0, along with a proposed future sidewalk easement in case the town would like to request that in the future, along with a bike rack for employees in case they would like to ride their bikes. And I would like to address any questions that you may have.
Anybody on the board have questions?
What's your definition of peak? It says AM and PM. The doctor's office, they don't all show up at 9 and leave at 5. So what's the peak?
That is per the ITE guidelines, and I believe the peak for the medical dental office was 8 to 9 a.m. in the morning, and I believe 4 to 5 p.m.
Is what the report said to you, that those were the hours?
Yes.
Okay. Can we go over LaBella's comments?
Sure, if there's any other board I just wanted to ask one question. We
Yeah.
talked a lot about the landscaping, because you're going to be taking quite a bit out,
Yes.
and are you going to be adding any to further shield the view from the street?
Yes, we are adding 4 large shade trees in the front lawn. So we're adding the 4 large shade trees up here.
Are those the green ones that I'm seeing, that are sticking out to me here? Okay. All right. Thank you. If there's no other questions from the board members.
I-
Go ahead, Kayla.
Oh, go ahead, Kate.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
With the employees-only parking sign, can we also have a directional sign for patients to park?
Yes.
Which seems to me make more sense that patient parking would be marked as opposed to employee parking.
Yes.
Because the employees are always going to know where to go, or
I don't think we've seen any signage.
There is an existing steel directory sign that indicates that patients park further up, and it gives the address, and then there's, of course, the employee parking's only. We are going to save that sign and reuse it, and with the addition of an employees only parking sign.
Okay. But you didn't provide examples of what those look like, because one's existing.
One is
And
existing.
what about the new one you have? Is that, you're just going to add it to that sign or separate sign?
It will be a separate sign. It will just be a small sign on a light pole, kind of what they already have.
on a light pole?
I believe.
It
Or
makes
just-
a whole lot more
Well,
sense to me to have
We do
it
have it just on a regular pole. I'm sorry.
in independent. I also, in addition to the employees only, I really would think that they should have patient parking with an arrow directing them.
Yes, I believe that's on the existing steel directory sign that has the patient parking and it gives the address and an arrow.
No, right where you have employee parking, unless you're
And-
going to gate this thing, people are going to pull in there, right? But if you just have the sign, employees only, patient parking with an arrow facing west, or
Yes, they have the arrow on the current steel
I'm asking you
directory
for to
sign.
do it on the same sign.
Okay, okay.
I think the question is, so that's where I'm a little confused. Where is the current sign on your diagram today?
So it is noted on page C 2.0, and I believe it says relocate the existing steel directory sign. Yes, it says place existing steel directory sign. And it's right before the entrance to the parking lot.
All right, so, got it.
Very small font.
Okay. Once you, you mind sharing that with the rest of the board? Yeah. So Alan, you got a picture of it over there too?
Yeah.
Position parking only.
Patient parking. That's what's there now.
Oh, so it's on a light,
It's on that light pole that's
it's like a handicap.
So there are those small signs on the light pole currently, and those are not going to be reused, but the larger steel directory sign that has arrows and addresses, we will be reusing.
positions only.
Yeah, they just
And then
need
when
to add
you're-
another panel that says patient parking.
Looked at the parking lot, not the signs.
I think if you're,
Is that gonna work, guys? Or what do we? Alan, you were asking for something, so that's why I wanted to understand.
Just where it says physicians parking or whatever it's going to say, that it just say patient parking with an arrow pointing to the west.
Okay.
you've got the two arrows going,
Yeah.
I don't know. Right, you got the two arrows for the two addresses going to the west.
Yes.
Just under that, another arrow that direction saying, you know,
Okay.
patient parking. You've
Okay.
got the physicians parking, make sure they turn, directing the patients where they want to go.
Okay.
I just want to make sure the ask was clear. You're good?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? I'd like to hear the Labella comments.
Sure, we have some minor comments. Also, just for my own knowledge, you probably already said this, I didn't catch it, but the patient parking, you want that on the directory sign or you want it on the new sign? On the directory sign? On the directory sign, okay.
That's why I asked for that yeah, thank you.
Right, okay.
So,
Okay, so first comment, this action appears to be a type 2. Luckily, that concludes the seeker part of the process. Screening, I guess I didn't catch those shade trees before, but just something for the board to think about of screening of the actual parking that, because I believe currently the parking is facing the building and there's a lot more space and a lot denser vegetation that's there. So just something for the board to think about of what's most appropriate. Lighting, just clarification on the existing light poles. If they are to remain, just add them to the lighting plan. If not, then we're all good with that. Signage, just to include the detail for the proposed signage as part of, in the civil plans. Sanitary sewer, obviously this is already existing, it's just an addition, so they're not proposing any new hookups, but just to show them on the plans, it's just good for if you're digging around that you know where those are. Stormwater management, just want some clarification of, so currently some portion of the site discharges via a 6-inch diameter pipe, and we're just want some clarification that that's going to be able to handle any changes from the increase in impervious surface. Also, just double check with Monroe County. Obviously, our prior project that they were here, they were not allowed to join in into the system on Culver Road. Just make sure that they're all good with the stormwater being directed from this site into the county system. Drainage inlet, so in the parking lot, they have those 4 spaces that are kind of in the middle. Just something to consider. Obviously, if it doesn't make sense, like physically, but to potentially put the inlet in the center so that it's not within any one parking space. So when individuals are pulling in, that they're not right on that. Then just another clarification for the access ramps and transitional curb, et cetera. And just to add a revision dates to the block in the plan set. So none of those are substantial, just minor things.
Yep, and we have no issue addressing all those comments.
Do we have comments from the county on this project?
We do.
Okay.
I believe they were sent.
I believe that we do have comments because we did send out a hard copy of the plans.
That's what I'm thinking too, and I'm
Well,
like,
excuse me, I'm sorry, just after January, we have January 16th.
I think we should ask
So
them.
it would have just been after the workshop meeting
okay.
that it would have been emailed.
Is the existing asphalt driveway to nowhere when you pull into the right, the new access to this? For scale?
The driveway just goes in.
That goes to nowhere, that
Yeah.
becomes the new access to this new driveway? Or is it,
No.
no?
You're talking about the one that's by the landscaping sign?
Yeah,
Yeah, we are removing that and that will be grass.
that'd be all grass, so you'll be further inland than that?
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to open up the public meeting. You could stay right there. If there's anybody who would like to speak about this case, please come to the podium. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay, you said it was a type 2, correct? Okay, so we don't have to do that. I will entertain a motion on this.
Can I just want to ask one
Oh,
last question.
No problem, go ahead.
What are the hours for the lights to be on in that front parking lot?
I believe they are just dawn to dusk as well.
Okay, and that'll be done,
When will they be done?
how's it controlled?
I believe just the same as any regular dawn to dusk light where it gets dark and they turn on.
Okay, but the last person just told us it was gonna be done through a photo cell, so it'll go on when it's dark. What are you guys doing?
My understanding is it would be the same. I'm not very certain as I'm not necessarily an electrical engineer.
Okay, then my only condition will be that we do the 1 hour before, 2 hours after on this. It just means that you'll be able to illuminate an hour before the place opens and then shut the lights off 2 hours after you close. And that would be just for that front parking lot. I don't see any reason to affect the building on it.
Do you know what they do for the existing lights? Okay. I know there are existing lights there down the driveway and of course in the existing parking lot. Maybe just go on the same schedule as the existing lights.
You'd be comfortable if you could tell them what that was.
Yeah.
Understandable, unfortunately, I don't know at this time.
So with the lack of information, what we'll do is help you out by putting the condition on it, and that way you know what you have to do.
Okay,
All right?
That's just for that parking lot.
Yeah.
okay.
Nicest way I could say that.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion. Or if
Sure.
you'd like, I'll do it.
On PB, there we go. 2025-0101. I was gonna say, it probably starts with a 25 because this one's new to us. That we approve the projects as presented with an easement on the south side of their property for a future sidewalk, an easement on the front of Culver Road, the east side of Culver Road for a potential sidewalk in the future. We just want the easement, we don't want anything else.
What's the easement for? You just want, they have to provide a sidewalk to the.
Right, okay,
On Culver is gonna be the city sidewalk.
yeah,
So yeah, I wouldn't do it on Culver, but you're saying along the private drive.
yeah. Then I'll limit it to that.
Is it, I'm sorry, so is it proper to say easement for future sidewalk?
Yes,
Okay.
I think it should be in there because people will not look at it
But it's
later.
easement for future sidewalk if sidewalks ever installed on Culver Road.
Correct. And that the lighting on the parking lot be allowed to be lit 1 hour before business and extinguished 2 hours after the close of business. On the parking lot that is closest to Culver Road and would be east facing.
How about the front?
Front's good for me, whatever anybody can understand. And I didn't say if it was for preliminary or final. Are we good with everybody just going today with everything? Okay.
Yeah, how about Labella's comments? Yeah.
And, yeah, all of Labella's comments are,
Addressed.
yes, addressed.
Also, you might want to add an addition of patient parking sign on the directory.
Yes.
Yeah.
So employee only parking. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Is it patient?
Patient parking with a sign on their directory.
sign for patient parking. And what about employee only in that lot? You don't want? It's already there. It's already there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, do I have a second? I'll second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No abstains and no absence. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, what's the schedule? I didn't ask. When you're going to start and when's it going to finish?
So we're hoping to apply for permit sometime in the next month, and then start as soon as we can after. So hopefully moving pretty quickly.
And how long from start to finish? Is it?
I think probably around 9 months. That might be a little aggressive, but that's the goal.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Sorry.
Sure. As I say, what did I do?
Our next item is a referral for the planning board. Proposed local law regarding the text amendment to the Arundecoit Town Code, Chapter 235-69 fencing. So the town board, they approve, you all know this, but I'll just say it anyway, approve text amendments to the code. The code, there's a provision where any text amendments come to the planning board for a referral. That'll go back to town board, and then they will make a decision.
Do you want to talk to the changes in this? Do you know what they changed or?
I'll just up top say that the change that most impacts this board is that I believe right now in the commercial business district, if a property owner proposes to install a fence, that it has to come to this board for approval, and that there are no actual specifications in the code for commercial business properties. And so now it's under item J5, that planning board will only review fencing proposals as part of a broader site plan application. So you all are not going to see just someone coming for a fence. But obviously, if a fence is part of a site plan, it'll be within your authority to review. And so I think a lot of items in here are just clarification. So one being, previously, proposed fencing over town easements had to be approved by Public Works. Public Works said, actually, it's prohibited. We never allow that, and so it doesn't really make sense to have it be in the code in that way. Additional information on snow fencing, the materials that can be used, and height. Additional clarification on fencing in vacant lots. And so vacant lots without a primary structure, 4 feet in the front yard, 6 feet in the side and rear, which is consistent with residential areas. And that designation of the front yard is based on the front yard of the adjoining properties that have a structure on them. Previously, there were no specifications on waterfront properties, so that's been added in there. Property owners are responsible to comply with DEC regulations, fences not to exceed 4 feet. They must be a minimum setback of 25 feet from the ordinary high water mark, and they can't interfere with drainage, erosion control features, sort of natural elements. Boundary fencing is now 6 feet is allowed in the side yard when previously it wasn't. Front yard fencing is previously can exceed 3.5 feet, now it's 4 feet. It's much easier to go to Home Depot and get a 4-foot fence than a 3.5-foot fence. And let's see what else here. Through lots, just indicating that for through lots, street frontages will be considered front yards. Language about sight lines, that fencing does not obstruct visibility for drivers, pedestrians, etc. As indicated before, previously non-residential fences would come to this board. Now there are specifications. So 4 feet in the front, 8 feet in the side and rear, an increase of 2 feet compared to residential properties. Fencing that is adjacent to residential districts has to incorporate visual screening. Repair and replacement is permitted with administrative approval. Deer protective fencing, this also was lacking in specification, so that's just been added here. What the purpose of it is, it doesn't require a permit. That deer fencing is not perimeter fencing. It's meant to protect vegetation, materials, and has to be kept in good condition. So really this was just cleaning this up. And hopefully the ZBA will be seeing fewer variances, because many people previously, they want a 4-foot high fence in the front yard, and we think that that's appropriate. So just fixing some of these things.
Okay, so it not only clears it up for planning board, probably the zoning board also, and also for the residents, right? It makes it a lot clearer for them.
Yes.
So considerable, I guess. So I think it's a positive referral. Do we just want to make that comment, that this clarifies it for not only the boards, but the citizens? or
Yeah, I
anything
just
else?
had 2 things. Numbers on Part B, 7. Who decides what an obstructive sight line is going to be?
So,
Well, it talks about it. Here's your sight lines.
so it would likely be under 8. Oh, it is, okay. So it's I don't know if it's called like a clear vision triangle, visibility triangle, something like that. But that's usually what's used to determine what may obstruct individuals as they're coming to like an intersection.
And then, so that'll just fall on that. That's not, got it. And then I thought I read somewhere in the vacant lot thing, the setback in the front was adjacent to,
It's based on the adjacent property, because in this case, we're talking about vacant lots that don't have a structure. And so it's hard to determine what a front yard is when you don't have a build-to line
right,
of what that is. So the minimum front setback is to match the setback of the adjoining property with the larger front yard setback.
so the next door, their front,
Yes.
will now be your front also. And that's where the 4-foot has to go, and
Yes.
6-foot can go around the rest.
Yeah, because obviously there's no structure for reference, so just be consistent with who's next to you.
Okay. I mean, I know there aren't a whole lot of them, but
Well, you would be surprised, because there's a couple of them that have to go for area variances because previous code only permitted 4 foot on vacant lots.
okay.
So now we are upping it to the 6 foot.
On the rear and the side,
Yes.
but the front.
So
So if
there's,
it's a commercial property next to them, they're just using their frontage, the commercial property's frontage.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, adjacent property, so right next door either side.
You can blame all these questions on the person who taught me how to read.
That's the ones that taught you how to speak, but we won't go on. So
That was inevitable. That was just happening on its own.
anyways, so what I have here is, unless somebody disagrees, a positive referral provide, and then we always give a reason, provides considerable clarifications for zoning, planning board, and citizens of Arundequoit. Anybody want to add anything to that?
It also addresses areas that the code was silent to in the past, giving guidance to the citizens of the town. It's added a new section on waterfront properties, which will be very helpful to keep those folks that are living on the waterfront property legal with the DEC.
Anything else?
I came up with two. Anybody got anything?
Okay.
Do we need more? We got four.
So I'll make the motion for a positive referral with those 3 comments that we made. Do I have a second?
Second. Oh,
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? Any opposed? Nay? No abstains? Nobody absent? And that's it for tonight, unless there's any other matters to address. Meeting's adjourned. Oh, all those in favor, please say aye. Or second? Second? Do I have a second?
sure.
Second. Mr. Burdick has a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.